Welcome to the Choose Wisely podcast, where I, your host, Alex Nderi, touch on the basics of life, relationships, and faith. Hope y'all had a great week. Hope y'all got some sun. Last week, I talked about wisdom and the idea of counting the cost using Luke 14:28 as the main idea of the episode. I mentioned how wisdom is a force that gives you the insight into the truth and foresight for the future. And lastly, the whole idea of testing spirits in 1 John 4 verse 1. So now in this episode, I wanted to talk about friendships and what friends look like, what friends don't look like, and who your best friend should be. So picking friends is a common struggle, especially for Christians. Now remember the ladder analogy that I gave from last episode, and I want to place another ladder in the mix, but just on the side. Now Jesus only requires one thing to climb his ladder of friendship, and that is in John 15 verse 14, that you are my friends if you do whatever I command you to do. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I've heard from my Father, I made known to you. If you're willing to take this verse and apply it, it takes diligence and trust. So when you trust, you're essentially putting all your eggs in one basket, giving it to somebody, and then they're going to take care of it. And they're going to know what to do with the eggs, essentially. And the other way is trying. And this is normally through the flesh. So when Jesus gives a command like jump, and their response is, how high? You've already delayed the command. So Colossians 3 verse 23 says, and whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men. Verse 24 says, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the word of their inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. When he says jump, that's all that you needed to do, but wholeheartedly. So if he says do it again, I'm going to do it again. And that builds trust on both sides, because then he's not going to be calling you servant. He's going to be calling you a friend. And so back to John 15 verse 16 now. It says, you did not choose me, but I choose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, that your fruit should remain, and that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. And these things I command you, that you love one another. So yes, fellowshipping is good with others, but fellowship with Jesus is greater. Look at Jesus as a big brother. The big brother that takes the blame for everything. The big brother that understands more than your parents do. Not because your parents don't understand, but your big brother has more referral to you than a parent. And what I mean by that is that Jesus was sent here on earth by God our Father in heaven, that the same struggles that you've been through, Jesus understands because he's been on earth to experience it. And it's not because God doesn't understand because he's in heaven. Because God, when he was speaking to Moses, he spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Because now when Jesus says in John 14 verse 6 that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me, our Father who sees the guy or the girl that's blameless and righteous can introduce you to the inheritance that we've been given. He trusts you for all of these things, and that's why he chose you. But do you trust him? And so in Matthew 14, when Jesus walks on water, and as Peter starts walking with Jesus, he sees the waves, and the waves are too much for him, and he starts getting his eyes focused away from Jesus. And then everything starts to crumble around him and he starts to drown. But Jesus is there to hold him. And so I keep using Jesus as an example, but what happens now because Jesus isn't here on earth anymore? So how do we come to know the Father? Through Jesus. And it's through the Holy Spirit. And so it says, he will glorify me, for he will take of what is mine and declare it to you. All things that the Father has are mine. Therefore, I said that he will take of mine and declare it to you. So the Holy Spirit, he reveals Jesus to us. So make Jesus your number one option. When all the cookies crumble, that's who's really our backbone and who's really our help. And he's there to listen. Now that we know that Jesus is our best friend, what are the characteristics of a friend? And there's some people who just go into a church and they don't know how to fit in, or they just go to a youth group and everyone's already friends with one another. And so the only option is that they run back to the friends that they've left, or they just don't want to deal with them and they just want to be alone. And it's not that you're an introvert and you don't know how to get out of your comfort zone, or you're an extrovert and nobody in the church is doing anything that matches your vibe. Because that feeling of loneliness starts from neglecting the fact that Jesus is your first option. And so remember that he won't leave you nor forsake you. So first we have to separate what is a good friend and what isn't. And who we should avoid is in 1 Corinthians 5:11 in the Message version. And it says, "But I'm saying that you shouldn't act as if everything is just fine when a friend who claims to be a Christian is promiscuous or crooked, is flip with God or rude to friends, they get drunk and become greedy and predatory. You can't just go along with this, treating it as acceptable behavior." Back in middle school, I was really quiet. Or not just quiet, but if I didn't know you, I wasn't going to speak to you like that. So when I was in middle school, I used to do the whole joking thing with everyone, and it's not like I was a bully or anything. If anything, everyone's a target. In my eyes, everyone is a target in the school that I went to. So everyone does the whole joking thing, and I would do jokes back. And it got to the point where I remember I was in 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I rode the bus home every day. There was this guy who sat next to me on the bus, and he's really cool. But for some reason that day he just smelled weird. And so I was like that whole bus ride just joking on him the whole day that he smelled bad and all of these things. By the end of the bus ride, when he had to get off, I remember he left the bus crying. And when he left the bus crying, I didn't think twice of what I was saying. I'm 12 years old, or 12 or 13 years old. I was always a year younger than everyone. About a month later, the same thing happened to me. I remember I didn't have deodorant after PE, and I'm on the way home, and everyone has to go get their backpacks, and you got to go all the way across the school to get your backpack before getting on the bus. So I'm getting off of PE, I can't find no deodorant. I got to walk all the way back through everyone. I usually just walk with a few friends just here and there. I remember one of my friends, he was like smelling me, like that smell was really hitting. I remember he was just dragging the moment, and he kept like telling people like, come over, like smell Alex. And I'm like, bro, you're doing too much. Like, I just want to get my backpack and just go home. So the guy was on the same bus ride with me, and he's joking me and doing the same thing all the way home. And I remember that day, that was the first day I actually cried, when somebody picked on me like that. And it's not like I was mad at him for what he was saying, because I can't lie, I smelled that day. I smelled bad. I just didn't understand how it felt to be on the other side. And so I remember this was at the end of the year, so by 9th grade, I remember going into high school, and I'm like, if anyone jokes on me, I won't joke back. Like, at all. I won't say this and this about anybody. By the time I got to my senior year, I had a class with all of my friends in math. I don't know how we got all in the same class, but that was probably one of my favorite classes in high school. I remember everyone would still be joking each other here and there. And as they're joking around, the teacher was really cool, because he knew that we were all friends. And so he was like, Alex, I'll give you bonus points if you joke on this person right here. Like, in my mind, I'm like, that's cool, bonus points, but like, that's not me. I'm not gonna do that. So the case that I'm making is that there's another verse that says that bad company corrupts good habits. And so the more you hang around a cop, the more you act like a cop, you think like a cop, you talk like a cop, and like the more you hang around bullies, you think like a bully, you act like them, you talk like them, you'll get in trouble like them because you're associated with them. All of these things, they all come together. And so friends have more influence than God. And it's crazy to say that, but it's true. And so when you keep yourself and keep Jesus as your main priority, you're gonna start to separate from others. But then there's people that you avoid, and there's people that you approach. And so in Proverbs 22, verse 24, it says, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with the furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. You'll set traps for yourself, even if you just act in or even think like them, because what you meditate on is the action that's going to come out, or the thing that you're going to say is what comes out. To find the good friends, just ask, hey Jesus, I want friends. Yes, there's that part, but then there's another part of you being friendly yourself. Proverbs 18:24 says, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. There's all those memes on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, has like somebody just sitting down during the service, and then the service ends and they just run out really quick because they don't want to converse with anyone. That person that just leaves out really quick, they're missing out on fellowship. And I want you to get the idea that you're not just there to make friends. You're gonna need friends to help you edify yourself. You're gonna need friends that have love in their heart. You're gonna need friends that have the fruit of the Spirit. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, and all of those things. Essentially, you want to surround yourself with people that have that fruit. You have to ask yourself, are the people that I'm around, are they kind? Are they long-suffering? Do they have self-control? Are they able to be discerning? Are they able to understand? Even then, there's other friends that can just take stuff from you, or the devil can just plant somebody around you that are trying to steal all those things. They're trying to steal your joy. They're trying to steal your peace, all of those things away from you. When you have somebody around and every time you see them, they're like, and that person is always just messing me up. Whenever I try to go forward, they pull me like 10 steps backwards. Go ahead and get rid of them. Or you can just pray and be like, hey God, I don't want this and this person. And I'm pretty sure you've noticed. So can you remove and replace that person with somebody else? Be careful where you go and the place that you step into, because either they're going to be a help to you or they're going to be a menace to you. So the best thing you can do is just test the Spirit and be present in the moment, because once you slip up, then it gives the enemy an opportunity to just come and wreck everything. And then there's friends that try to hold people accountable. But my take on it is that when you have friends that are trying to be accountable for you, that are pretty much in the same age range, it's not going to work out. You're going to need somebody that's able to counsel them instead of you being their backbone. And so when all else fails, instead of running to your friend that you've been sharing everything with, but make sure to also give it to God first. Because once you give it to God, then the rest is going to follow. And also make sure you're not just giving out your problems to anybody, because people will just take that and then use it against you. So just be wise in who you're making friends with. I want to stop right there and let y'all reflect on the things that have been said. If there's any questions, just leave them down below. Song suggestions on Apple Music, I have What a Friend I Found by Elevation Worship. And if you don't have Apple Music, my other song suggestion will be Omema by Chandler Moore. So that'll be all for this week's episode. Make sure to follow my Instagram at choose.wisely.pod. My links will be in the description down below. Next week, I'm going to get into finances. So thanks for tuning in, and keep going, keep your head up, and choose wisely.